Today we're going to talk about a little housekeeping, I guess you could say, which is if you're in practice, which many of you are, we're going to talk about the importance of why you need to really train your staff. Staff training is crucial to run a successful practice, and if you don't do it, uh, there are some repercussions that can happen. So we're going to talk about the importance of staff training. And I think if you have a practice, you should really listen to what we have to say. Hi, welcome to the Regenerative Warrior and Medical Influencer Show. My name is Dr. Ross Carter, and we want to welcome our special guest, Marcy Garuccio. Welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Dr. Carter. I really appreciate the opportunity of speaking with you and your audience.
Fantastic. So, could you introduce a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in this area?
Sure. So I developed a medical billing company 20 years in 1990. I ran that. It was founded on anesthesia, but it grew to many different specialties, primarily surgical and in-house physicians. From there, I migrated my company to a bigger billing company and consulted.
Mhm.
From there, I went to work as a CEA for a large group. And from there, I kind of went back into consulting because I felt that was more my niche where I needed to be.
So now your specialty area is really involved in helping medical practices utilize their staff better, right?
That's part of it. Yes, it's part of it. I focus on coding, documentation,
Hmm.
medical necessity, compliance, and auditing. So those are my the big five things that I do focus with and find really valuable within any medical practice.
All right. So how should we start with this? Where would you like to start?
Well, probably the first thing I would recommend to any group practice is having one sole knowledgeable, and when I say knowledgeable, I mean having somebody that knows your specialties, rules and regulations.
Okay.
Governmental and as well as participating. That's really key to almost every practice I have worked with, whether it's urology, cardiology, anesthesia, pain management. All of these specialties have certain rules and regulations of what they can and cannot do. And they're often, quite honestly, overlooked until the group gets hit with an audit or a take back.
And those are painful.
Yes, they really are. You want to be proactive. I always recommend being proactive with those things.
So you need at least one person that kind of knows all about what's going on with the regulations.
Correct.
Got
Correct.
it. Okay.
And that person needs to be able to put people in place to do each component of your specialty.
Okay.
Whether, like front end office, running that front end office, your pre-certification, your pre-authorizations.
Yes.
All the way through coding, documentation, revenue cycle management. They all go hand in hand. And if you have one weak area, it could increase your risk to loss in revenue or increase your risk of unkind audit findings.
And so how do you kind of get these positions filled and properly trained?
For me, I go into a practice that's struggling, and it's usually struggling financially. And I do just a scope where I sit and watch the practice from the beginning of the day to the end.
Right.
And what every moving part is doing. Then I compare it with what needs to be done in there and where things are falling through the cracks. I'll look at month-end reports and see what's glaring or what I feel shouldn't be there, because oftentimes services that a physician performs aren't always paid because, again, they may be buttoned up against a governmental rule and regulation or a policy that specifies certain things have to be done either prior or during that service. And they're just totally unaware of it. And if the staff doesn't understand why those things are being denied and just following the explanation of benefits, a lot of money does get adjusted off. So I look at the scope of day-to-day service, what's being done, how's the money being posted. And it even gets a little bit murkier when you use a third-party billing service.
Do you recommend doing that or not?
I did for my fellow with the AAPC, my research paper was whether or not to, whether it was beneficial to in-house your billing or keep it out. And quite honestly, the winner was to outsource it only because the resources were so much better economically, if that makes sense. In other words, that's their thing. And if they do it well, they're going to do it well for you. So It's just important to make sure that when you pick a billing service, you pick one that is heavy in the specialty that you're in.
Hey, this is Dr. Rosscarter again. Listen, if you're a doctor or a medical professional or interested in adding exosomes to your practice, or if you're actually a potential patient who's interested in exosomes, I want you to listen. Now, the company that we're recommending, I have an agreement with. Basically, I refer them business. Now, I would rather, if you're getting exosomes, make sure to get it from an actual company and not a distributor. So I'm not, doing it that way. Basically, I'm just referring you to them. But if I do refer them to you or you to them, basically what you'll get is not only will you get product from them at the best price you can get, but you'll also get an additional bonus of free amniotic exosome products as well. So what that means is if you order the placental exosomes, the MSC exosomes, you'll get in addition for free amniotic exosomes absolutely free. So if you're using amniotic exosomes, you're already paying for those, and so you get a vial of those for free with purchase of the MSC exosomes, and hopefully you see the difference in the value by now. If you're a patient and considering this and you think, hey, I'd like to do this procedure, all you got to do is you can contact me and I'll send you places that could be close to you. So here's how to contact me. Just send me an email at drrosscarter@gmail.com. That's drrosscarter@gmail.com. Or you can call or text me at 561-962-1231. That's 561-962-1231. So either email me or text me or call me. It's just best to email or text me, and I can get back with you with that information. So if you're considering this, let me be the reference point, and it helps to support the show. Obviously, I get a benefit if I refer you. So I want to be transparent about that. So please support the show and email or text me, and I can get you connected and give you the best prices. Plus, a special is you're going to get additional amniotic fluid exosomes for free. Can't beat that. So I hope you continue to enjoy the show. I'll let it continue. Here you go.
And how do you know? How do you know if you're with a good one?
Well, of course, you want to do a research, through the internet and for recommendations, and
sure,
you can kind of gather that there. But look at their clientele. If you're, and I work a lot with anesthesia and pain management, and if you're one of those, you don't want to be at a billing company that doesn't have that isn't heavy in that specialty. So the first thing you want to look for is something that's heavy in your specialty, and then the next thing you want to do is look at performance. And don't be afraid to ask for references within their organization. Now, I mean, honestly, they're probably going to give you their top clients that are happy.
Of course.
Of course. But that's what I would recommend, and making sure that the tools that they have, that they utilize are, top of the line.
Now,
as far as like electronic warehousing and claim submission and so forth.
and what should now do they typically are these companies doing it on a percentage basis of billed or collected, or what is it that you're looking for?
Yes, it's a percentage of net collections. Most times, you'll find companies that offer per claim submission,
Yeah.
so much per claim. But here's the caveat with that is if they're not good at what they do or your documentation isn't coming in the door clean,
Yep.
and maybe a diagnosis is off or missing or a modifier's not right, you can have repeat rejections on that.
But you still have to pay for it.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
I think the other is more prominent.
Yeah, and they might also notice billing glaring errors of how you're doing things.
Correct.
So it
Correct.
could be kind of like a little audit as well.
Well, yes, most billing companies do have an auditing department, and just to keep them in check as well.
Yep.
But yeah, I like audits with internally first, because at least you're kind of keeping track of your house, keeping it clean. And then if you have an outside auditor, you have that confidence to know, well, unless I'm not auditing correctly, we shouldn't have any problems with this.
Right. And so what do you normally see in a practice that where they're really dropping the ball? What's the most common things that you find?
Oh, I would say that most commonly it's either credentialing, where they have providers come on board and start before the credentialing process is not complete, or a provider that they bring in. I'll use a PA, for example, that's doing things that's not qualified to do. So there's always that, and there's the other is probably services provided that they don't understand the policies tied to it.
Meaning they're providing services that they can't for some reason?
They can, but they may have a policy from a Medicare may have a policy that says, for example, if you're going to do an epidural steroid, you can only do them, 3 times a year in one level. And you have to do A, B, C, and D first. In other words, you have to do conventional therapy, and you have to try anti-inflammatories. And so you have to make sure that you do A, B, C, and D before you get to that epidural steroid. And then there are diagnoses that warrant that procedure and some that don't. So I'll find a group that might, and a lot of times they are doing the diagnosis required, but they don't report it. They don't think it's important. Like, for instance, believe it or not, maybe low chronic back pain is acceptable, but they put radiculopathy or spinal stenosis. So sometimes it's just making them aware of this is what meets medical necessity. And you're hitting it, but you're not coding it. Your coder missed it. So that's why it's important for everybody on staff to understand what policies tie in with their specialties, what carriers follow it. Because most often CMS is a big standard of practice. A lot of carriers do follow that. But then sometimes they'll roll off that policy and kind of tweak it towards something with that carrier, like maybe Blue Shield adds a little caveat to it. So you can't just stop at CMS. You've got to look at all the carriers that you participate with and make sure that you understand the policies and how it relates to your services and what's needed in documentation to hit the mark.
Are there other areas that you can outsource your practice in, like, for example, specifically on like coding? How to do coding specifically, or what other areas can you basically outsource to specialists that don't need to necessarily be trained, that are already great in that area? Or can someone, let's say, one person who's a coder for and they know the codes in a state, obviously, because it's your state, they could work for multiple practices. Is that okay as well?
Oh, sure. And they have that's out there. Actually, one of the services that I do provide across the nation is coding and medical billing. I or my staff will, help groups that are struggling to find those people, and we'll just remote in on their system and help, catch them up with their work. But the AAPC and AHIMA will, that's where I've gotten my certifications from the AAPC. There are certain schools, and as a matter of fact, I have a really good colleague in Phoenix that offers all the certifications, whether it be coding, auditing, compliance, and she does it remote, virtual. So if I had one of my workers sign up with her, and she did a program through this coding school to go online once a week, and she ended up getting her certification through my colleagues. So there's schools out there, and it's important too to get to the right school that have the one-on-one relationship to help answer your questions, because it's not an easy. The test alone is 5.5 hours, and it's 150 questions, so it's a hard course to pass. I recommend every medical practice should have a certified coder within their organization, and as well as a certified biller, because those are keys to your revenue cycle management and being properly, being proper in compliance.
Gotcha. And so for compliance, I guess I would wonder how to make sure that you are in compliance. I mean, that's usually the worst problem, right? If you're not compliant, a lot of bad things can happen.
Right. Every medical practice should have what they call a compliance plan, which, ties everything from HIPAA all the way to your standard of care policies together. Mm-hmm. So that's where you would want to start to make sure that you have one on board and it's updated and everyone is aware of it and, knows what's expected within your practice.
If someone's starting out or they're starting to grow their practice, how do you know the order of what you should hire, as well as I guess where you would start, and you go first make sure you got this handled, and then handle this, and then you're going to handle this. How would you start that?
I started, especially with my medical billing company, I started with a good attorney that had knowledge in a startup. So if it was a medical practice, you would want to go with a medical attorney that could help you, start the business up and make sure that you hit all the requirements needed in regulations. The other thing that I did is I had a good accountant, that accounting firm that understood medical billing. So you would want to have a physician would want to have a medical accountant that's really well versed in medical. So you're kind of just putting into place what you need to establish your practice and how you're going to succeed. So put the people with those knowledge, the knowledge to handle that. Because I honestly, when I started my billing company, I didn't want to deal with, tax. I just wanted my accountant to say, here's how you pay, here's what's, just tell me what I need to do. Same with IT. I had a really good medical billing software. It was MicroMD, and that's from Henry Scheinman. I really like that. So, get your pieces of what you need by the experts. If you start trying to do things outside your wheelhouse, that's when the wheels will fall off.
And nobody wants their wheels to fall off.
Nobody wants that. No.
Understood. Now, so for you, how do you help practices?
I've done multiple things, but lately, as far as when PQRS, which was a quality program for CMS, and it turned in and morphed into MIPS, I help providers get on board with that quality program. That doesn't seem to be that's been running now for years, so that's kind of stabilized. What I get called for more now is from billing companies needing coding, auditing, and practices that need the help with their revenue cycles done, and they just don't understand why it is.
You can do these remotely?
I can. I dial into whatever system they have, whether it be Epic for documentation, compliance, or eClinical, or I go into their practice management software and just generate reports, take a look at what their scope of service is compared to what their contracts are.
Yeah.
That's another thing. You contract with these companies and expecting to get a rate, and when I go in, if it's not followed and looked at closely, there's always something kind of that could be missing. So just kind of looking. But those are probably the heaviest right now is coding, documentation, and revenue cycle management issues.
Perfect. So if somebody was interested in utilizing your services, how would they get in touch with you?
Currently my website is down, so I have a go-to. My old billing company was Healthcare Billing Associates, so they would email me at Marcy, Marcy, H as in Harry, C as in cat, B as in boy, A as in apple, at hotmail.com.
All right.
It's an old one,
Yeah.
but it's really reliable. Until I get things situated, everybody's been hitting me up on that. So
the email is the best way to get started with you.
Correct.
Perfect. All right. Well, fantastic. Did we miss anything of huge value that I missed?
No, I just think that the biggest key for a doctor that's in your audience or clinician is to know what's required within the specialty that they're providing services for. The only other piece I will give you is if you want to do something new within your practice, a new procedure, a new device, anything new, research it before you start, because it's imperative to do a cost analysis to understand what's required with that procedure, what's it going to cost you or that service, and what are you going to gain in advance? Because what I found with groups that I work with is they're not contracted within their participating contracts. So you need to talk to those insurance carriers and say, going to be doing this, we need to add it in. It can be crucial because you don't want to start something and then close the door on it.
Understood.
So,
Marcy, thank you so much for your time today. I'm sure this will help out many practices. So
it's been a pleasure. It's truly been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
It was my pleasure. Have a great one.
You too.